It all began with a flight that was delayed by a mere 30 minutes, but for Mason, that small delay became the catalyst for a journey that would uncover the chilling truth hidden beneath the tarmac of the Denver International Airport, DIA. Mason had never been one to entertain conspiracy theories. The idea of secret societies, underground bunkers, or cryptic symbols etched into the walls seemed laughable. He was a man of reason, a data analyst who preferred numbers to rumors. But when his flight to New York was delayed and he found himself stranded at DIA, the sprawling airport that was rumored to be more than it appeared, curiosity gnawed at him. He had heard the whispers before, the strange murals, the gargoyle statues, the inexplicable design choices. DIA, it seemed, had become an object of fascination for conspiracy theorists. They spoke of hidden underground bunkers, extraterrestrial involvement, and the ominous messages coded into the art displayed across the terminal. But Mason, being the skeptic that he was, brushed it all off. That was, until he wandered into the terminal's main concourse during his wait. As he walked toward the gate, something caught his eye, a symbol on the floor. It was an intricate circle, filled with bizarre shapes and symbols. He'd seen it before, the so-called Black Horse of the Apocalypse, standing tall at the entrance. The horse, made of steel, was an unsettling sight to anyone who looked at it too long, its glowing red eyes staring into the depths of the viewer's soul. But the floor symbol was new to Mason, and it unsettled him. He crouched down to inspect it more closely. It looked like a pentagram, but with something darker embedded in the design. As he studied it, he felt the hairs on his neck stand on end. A woman standing nearby must have noticed his confusion. She approached him with a knowing look. "You're starting to see it, aren't you?" she asked cryptically. "See what?" Mason responded, brushing it off. "The signs," she whispered. "They're all around us. The murals, the horse, the airport itself, it's not just a place for travel. It's a key." Mason shook his head. "Are you suggesting there's some kind of conspiracy here?" The woman leaned in closer. "A secret society. The Illuminati, perhaps. But more likely, something older, an ancient order with knowledge of things we can't even begin to comprehend." Before Mason could ask her what she meant, she turned abruptly and disappeared into the crowd. He stood there, feeling the weight of her words, yet still convinced it was all a wild exaggeration. But then something happened that shattered his disbelief. While waiting at the gate, Mason found himself seated next to an older man, who seemed to be deep in thought. The man, noticing Mason's interest in the floor symbol earlier, nudged him and asked if he'd seen the murals. At first, Mason thought he was referring to the large, colorful paintings that adorned the walls of the airport, depicting various apocalyptic and dystopian themes. They were unsettling, featuring images of violence, war, and strange symbols. Mason nodded cautiously. "Yeah, they're weird." The man looked around before leaning closer, lowering his voice. "They're not just weird. They tell a story, Mason. A story that's been hidden for decades. A story about what's coming." Mason raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? The murals aren't just about the destruction of the world. They're about what's waiting on the other side. The new order. The underground bunkers. The ones who'll survive the chaos." Mason's heart raced. "Bunkers?" The man glanced nervously over his shoulder, as if ensuring they weren't being overheard. "Yeah, beneath this airport, there's an entire network of tunnels, rooms, and facilities built for the elite. They're preparing for something global. And DIA is the hub. The new world will emerge from here." Mason's mind raced. The idea of an underground complex beneath the airport was no longer something to laugh at. He'd heard rumors of such things before, but now it seemed as though he was in the very heart of it. The murals, the horse, the symbols. What if they were all parts of the same puzzle? What if this airport was more than just a transit hub? What if it was the key to something far darker? He excused himself from the conversation, his mind spinning. He had to get to the bottom of this. He had to find the truth. That night, as Mason lay in his hotel room, his phone buzzed with a strange message from an anonymous number. "Meet me at the old baggage claim. 11 p.m. Don't bring anyone." The message sent a chill down his spine. Could it be a trap? Was someone else trying to reveal the conspiracy? Or worse, Was he about to stumble into something far more dangerous than he could imagine? Ignoring the gnawing voice of reason in his head, Mason grabbed his jacket and made his way back to Dia. The airport was eerily quiet at that hour, the usual bustle of travelers replaced by an unsettling silence. The lights above flickered intermittently as he walked down the long corridor toward the baggage claim area. There, in the shadows, stood a figure. It was the woman from earlier, the one who had whispered about the Illuminati. "You're late," she said, her voice soft yet urgent. "What's going on?" Mason asked, his heart pounding in his chest. She motioned toward the baggage carousel, where the conveyor belt was running, but there were no bags. Instead, a strange metal panel was moving slowly along the belt. It was a hidden entrance, disguised as a piece of airport equipment. Without another word, she pulled him toward it. "The real airport is beneath your feet." Mason followed her through the entrance, descending into a vast network of tunnels. The air was thick with a strange energy, and the walls seemed to hum with a low vibration. The deeper they went, the more the world above seemed to fade away. At the heart of the complex, Mason saw it, an enormous, high-tech control center, filled with monitors and terminals. But the most unsettling part was the giant map on the wall, showing global locations marked with glowing red dots. The world was on the brink, and Dia was the nexus of the plan. "You've seen enough," the woman said, her voice solemn. "Now you know what awaits. The Denver International Airport isn't just a gateway to the world. It's a gateway to the future. A future that will only be inhabited by those who are chosen." Mason had always prided himself on being a man of logic and reason. But standing in that underground control center, surrounded by technology and secrets, he realized that some things defied explanation. The conspiracy was real. And Dia was just the beginning. As Mason stood frozen in the eerie underground chamber, his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The hum of machinery around him seemed almost unnatural, as if it were waiting for something. The woman beside him, who had led him here, remained silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on the glowing red dots on the map that flickered ominously. "Why are you showing me this?" Mason asked, his voice shaking. The weight of the moment felt like a heavy cloak pressing down on his chest. The woman finally turned to him, her face hardening with an expression he hadn't seen before, something between fear and resignation. "Because you're already involved now," she said quietly. "You can't unsee what you've seen." Mason's heart raced. "But what is this? What are they planning?" She sighed, her eyes darkening as she looked around the control room. "What you're seeing on that map is the result of decades of preparation. Those red dots are places of power, key sites around the world. The ones who run this place, who built it, have been positioning themselves to survive a coming global collapse. The conspiracy isn't just about control, it's about survival. Survival for a select few." Mason could hardly catch his breath as the realization hit him. "You're telling me this airport, this place under the airport, is part of some kind of global reset?" The woman nodded slowly, then pointed toward a large screen that displayed encrypted messages and coded communications. "The murals, the symbols, the horse, the designs aren't just art. They're warnings, they're directives. And this," she gestured around the room, "is the heart of it all. It's the base of operations for the global elite." The control room was like something out of a science fiction movie. Walls lined with screens showing satellite feeds, data streams, and cryptic messages. There were books, ancient-looking tomes that seemed out of place in such a modern setting. A large table in the center had detailed plans of cities and infrastructure, all marked with what appeared to be evacuation routes and shelters. Mason took a few steps forward, his eyes glued to the screens. It was all coming together in a way that was impossible to ignore. The strange sculptures, the unsettling murals at the airport, the bizarre choice of location, it all made sense now. Dia was more than a transportation hub. It was a hidden fortress, a command center for those who believed they could weather whatever storm was coming. "What do they want? Why Denver?" Mason asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why an airport?" The woman hesitated, then took a deep breath. "They wanted a place that could be easily isolated, somewhere that wouldn't attract attention. Denver, with its proximity to military bases, its high altitude, its proximity to secretive organizations, it's perfect. But it's not just about location. It's about control of the narrative. The airport itself is a symbol. And symbols hold power. She pointed to the floor symbol Mason had noticed earlier, the one shaped like a pentagram, with strange runes embedded in the design. That symbol is not just a design flaw. It's a sigil, part of an occult tradition that goes back centuries. The Illuminati, the Freemasons, ancient societies, they knew how to use symbols to control masses. To reshape reality itself. Mason's stomach turned as he looked at the symbol again. He had dismissed it as a random design at first, but now the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. This was no ordinary airport. It was part of something much darker, something far older. But why tell me all of this? Mason asked. Why now? The woman's face softened, though only slightly. Because they know you're watching. You've been asking the wrong questions, and now they've noticed. They can't let you expose this. You need to understand that they're everywhere. Their influence goes deeper than just the airport. It's in the financial systems, in the media, in governments around the world. They're preparing, Mason, for something catastrophic. A financial collapse, an environmental disaster. Something that will alter the world as we know it. And the few that survive will be those in the know. Those who are part of this order. Mason felt a chill run down his spine. He had always thought these kinds of things were reserved for the realm of dystopian fiction. But this was real. The world he had known, with all its predictable patterns, was crumbling beneath his feet, and he had no idea what to do with this knowledge. The woman stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. If you want to stop it, Mason, you have to act. You can't just walk away from this. Stop it? Mason echoed, trying to make sense of what she was saying. How? How can I stop it when I don't even understand it? You have to find the truth, Mason. The truth is hidden here, in this airport, in the files and the artifacts they've buried beneath the surface. But you're running out of time. They're already preparing. Once they've completed their plans, they won't need anyone like you. Someone who might reveal them to the world. A sudden, sharp sound from the back of the control room made them both freeze. The woman's expression changed instantly from concern to something colder, more calculating. We have to go, she whispered urgently. They're here. Before Mason could react, she grabbed his arm and pulled him down a side hallway. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor behind them. Mason didn't need to look back to know that they weren't alone. Whoever was coming for them wasn't friendly. The woman led him to a small, unmarked door that opened into another tunnel. This will take us out, she said, her voice tense. But you can't stay here any longer. You have to leave Denver. If they know you're onto them, they won't hesitate. Mason opened his mouth to protest, but she silenced him with a harsh look. You can't save everyone, but you can save yourself. And you need to warn others. As they hurried through the dimly lit tunnel, Mason's mind raced. The woman had given him the key to an unimaginable secret, but now the question was, could he expose it? Would anyone believe him? And more importantly, was it already too late? The conspirators, the hidden agenda, they were everywhere. And the airport in Denver, with its unsettling symbols and strange history, was only the surface of a much larger, more sinister plan. When they emerged into the night, Mason felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He wasn't sure who to trust, or how far the reach of the conspiracy extended. But one thing was certain. He had just stumbled into the heart of something far greater than anything he could have imagined. And he was not alone. The Denver International Airport was no ordinary place. It was the starting point for something much bigger. Something global. And the world might never be the same.